Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back to another Chris Chan video. Where today, ladies and gentlemen, we are sort of like winding down this section of the Quictionary, in which we look at Chris's, comic definitions. And to that end, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be taking a look at parody, as Chris has issues understanding. And also, just take a look at Chris there. That's the face of a man who sat on a chocolate cake, put his dick in the snow for 15 minutes, who made various sex tapes, and also screamed his head off at a bunch of cats. This article contains links which have been cut down by the internet lumberjack, or which have otherwise crashed into slumber due to stress. Please help the quickie by replacing or restoring those links. Thank you. Any names or persons illustrated in the Sonichu comics, except that of Christian Western Chandler, that may seem similar to anyone in real life, are purely coincidental, otherwise parodic, or of ones that do foretell Chris's imaginings of real life. Chris's disclaimer page appearing in every episode and read before every video book. Also Jason Kendrick Howe and his 17-year-old girlfriend Kathleen Nicole Wallace in this comic are based on the real people and both have actually done things together that would be classified as illegal in the USA. Send the police on them in Clarksville, Tennessee. Chris contradicting his own disclaimer. Also, why should it be down to other people? Why can't you ring the police on them, Chris? Parody is an imitative work created to mock, comment on, or trivialize an original work. Its subject, author, style, or some other target by means of humorous, satiric, or ironic imitation. The concept dates back to the ancient Greek literate as Hermogen of Phasos, was credited with being the first guy to change the words of poems to make them funny. In a broader sense, parodies need not be humorous, as long as they provide some sort of commentary on the original work. In that sense, a parody can be considered a sort of critical analysis of the original work. For Chris, the word parody is basically a way to secure copyrights for other people's ideas. This is true. You see, parody falls under fair use in copyright law. So if Sonichu is a parody of Sonic the Hedgehog and Pokemon, then it's perfectly legal for Chris to turn Sonichu into a media franchise. However, we'll discuss by what we mean, however. Chris attempts parody in the infamous Family Guy sketch. Oh, my axles. This is not the bathroom. More importantly, Chris's face is sort of like melting down the side. Why Sonichu is not a parody. How do we put this lightly? Well, unless you believe that badly ripping off other media constitutes as parody, Sonichu is not a parody. The issue of whether or not Sonichu meets the criteria for fair use is academic. As it stands, Chris is simply one of thousands of lame Sonic fans trying to make a name for himself by creating shitty recolors. For all of Chris's big dreams of developing Sonichu games, cartoons, and merchandise, he can barely muster the motivation to produce 2 issues of the comic book each year, despite the quality of his workmanship. This is true. Still, the question remains, is Sonichu a parody? If humor is to be chief criterion, then the answer is obviously no. Nearly all of the humor to be found in the series is purely unintentional by the author. A good example of this is the principle in action in the infamous Family Guy sketch of Sonichu issue 7. The problem is that Chris isn't that clever, as demonstrated by the way he shamelessly offers the gag to use in the show itself, indicating that Chris believes his imitation is tantamount to the genuine article. In terms of commentary on the original work, Sonichu is virtually devoid of this. Early issues would poke fun at Sonic and Pokemon characters, but this wasn't particularly insightful. Indeed, characters like Team Rocket and Dr. Robotnik are often mocked in the original works, so Chris is most likely just repeating what he'd seen. In Sonichu issue 1, Amy Rose meets Rosechew, but the scene is little more than a dry comparison of the two, who wind up being more alike than different. Even Jason Fredberg and Aaron Seltzer understand parody better than Chris. Who are these guys again? Let me just check out who these guys are. Age 49. Filmography. Spy Hard, Scary. Oh my goodness. They directed Vampire Sucks. Spy Hard, Scary Movie, Date Movie, Epic Movie, Meet the Spartans, Disaster Movie. Disaster Movie has a 1% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. 53% on Scary Movie, probably the only thing they've ever done. The Starving Games, Best Night Ever, oh my god. It doesn't even get a rating on this. What does that mean? You know, people say Scary Movie 5 is a terrible movie, but it made nearly 4 times its budget, so call that what you will, I suppose. Sorry, I just kind of like didn't know who those two were. Jason Fredberg and Aaron Seltzer. Speaking legally rather than artistically, in the United States, a valid parody should demonstrate reasonable usage with regard to the amount and sustainability of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. To fall under fair use, in other words, the hypothetical defendant should be able to show that they have not taken any more than of the original work than was necessary to achieve the purpose for which the material was copied from the original work. If Chris really does have some parodic purpose in mind for Sonichu, the sheer volume of ideas he has simply appropriated from other sources is weighted heavily against him. Aside from using characters with names and appearances mostly or completely lifted from other works, which he does, the main storylines themselves are far too derivative of the original materials to qualify as pastiche or homage. Chris merely chooses to mix and match entire ready-made plots such as the quest for the Sonichu Balls, Sonic the Hedgehog and Dragon Ball, or the plight of Zelena, Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link, making only superficial changes and avoiding any decent narration along the way. Ultimately, the main difficulty in proving this point against Chris would be delineating the numerous works he has used and where, unfortunately for him, this has been done. Perhaps by sheer coincidence, let me guess, this ripped-off warning is a parody too. Possibly too, if you keep telling a lie often enough. Yeah, true. Perhaps by sheer coincidence, Sonichu has evolved into a shell of what a true Sonic parody could be. Like the Sonic characters, the cast is composed of cutesy-looking animals who have gradually sloughed off the veneer of innocent video game mascots to engage in angsty dialogue and crude romantic entanglements. And, like Pokemon, the Sonichus and Rosechus are superpowered animals who battle in the service of a bossy, whiny human. In short, by combining the two franchises, Chris has wound up depicting a darker, more infantile reflection of each. The problem is that he fails to realize this, and so to the actual commentary on Sonic and Pokemon is never properly realized. During an IRC chat with Clyde Cash and Billy Mays, Chris spends an inordinate amount of time trying to explain how Sonichu is a parody of Sonic, though he entirely forgets Pikachu. But all he does is list their similarities. Even after the definition of parody is spelled out to him completely, he fails to try and find any element of Sonichu that is a legitimate parody of Sonic. He continues to insist that Sonichu is a parody because he's fast, but also has electricity powers. In his PowerPoint presentation video, Chris has even described Sonichu's story as an untold chapter of one story, so it is additional, yet not a major plot change, which plants it quite firmly in the territory of derivative work, which would not stand up in court. Yeah. The irony is that by refusing to embrace Sonichu as a derivative, one-dimensional Sonic recolor, Chris fails to live up to his assertion that Sonichu is a parody. But Chris can't have it both ways. It's either original or a parody. The closest Sonichu ever comes to a true parody is in its satirical depiction of Encyclopedia Dramatica in issue 8. Instead of simply portraying ED as a website, Chris represents it as a sort of business, housed in a physical building, with its users working there as some sort of staff, churning out slanderous content as an end unto itself. For once, Chris actually has a point to make, that ED is a bunch of mean-spirited jerks who waste their lives hurting people. This message is ham-fisted, but at least it's not the usual subtext like, I think hedgehogs are way past cool, and I'd sure like to have sex. Then again, given his belief that LULS is an acronym for Laughs Under Lucrisities, it's quite possible that he literally believes ED is a business as well. Chris also believes that stealing real people's names and basically portraying them as he sees them is parodic. Mary Lee Walsh, Wesley, stuff like that. This is, of course, untrue, and it's a complete miracle none of those portrayed in the comics has ever sued Chris for slander. That's another thing Chris could still get into serious trouble for, as well as, treason and ordering death threats to people. Further demonstrating Chris's ignorance of the true nature of parody is his belligerence towards artists who have imitated his work. In particular, Chris has vehemently denounced Jimmy Hill for claiming credit for Sonichu and merchandising the character in Europe as an openly homosexual cartoon character. What Chris can't or won't understand is that Hill's use of Sonichu is exactly what a parody is supposed to be, since his version deliberately alters Sonichu to humorous effect. In a court battle, the law is more likely to favour the work of trolls as parody, though there's some question of what happens when you parody something that's already stolen. Why not at this point? That's, you could set the foundations for what might be a law, perhaps. But even if Chris understood fully what parody means, it likely wouldn't matter anyway. Parody is simply a word for Chris that he uses as one of many excuses he comes up with to do whatever the hell he wants. When he tried to strike a deal with Vivian G to get a cut of her audiobook money, he said he was doing so despite not being happy with her work that was parodic, while the audiobooks straight up mock Chris and his comic rather than act as parodies. To him, it's not okay for him to be the subject of parody, but it's okay for him to make parodies of works that others create. You know what? You give as much as you take. Equal rights, equal fights. That's what Chris cannot understand or will tolerate. To him, it's not okay for him to be the subject of parody, but it's okay for him to make parodies of others' works that they create. So it seems that he understands on a basic level that a parody is intended to make fun of something, but he changes the meaning of the word to suit his needs. When he's called out on how Sonichu is plagiarism, indeed, plagiarists usually don't condone plagiarism when they're the ones being plagiarized. Sonichu as a meta-parody. On the other hand, Chris's narcissism makes him a virtuoso at self-parody, so if he ever sues himself, he's already covered. When Chris takes Paddy-chan to Quickville, he leads her through a portal in his bedroom. Upon seeing the disheveled state of his quarters, Paddy remarks that it's no wonder Chris needs a woman in his life. Yikes. By Sonichu issue 6, Chris believed he had completed his love quest by befriending Megan Schroeder, and eventually mocked his former bitterness over not having a girlfriend. When the heroes discuss the plight of Crystal, the subject soon turns to how jealous men can be, and Miyagi wearily echoes Chris's statement that he despised nearly all the men on Earth simply because he couldn't get a girlfriend. A hilarious inside joke, if you're not Chris. if you're Chris. Chris leads a squad into the year 1996, where he relives the moment where he created Bionic the Hedgehog. In the next issue, as Lockers played a role in his inspiration, Chris extended the scene to include a gag lifted directly from an episode of Beavis and Butthead, where the two slam a locker door over and over for fun. In Sonichu issue 8, Sonichu discovers Rule 34, pictures on 4centgarbage.com, and expresses amazement that he and his friends are, or rather were, photographed in such intimate moments. Rosechu pointedly informs him that the images and drawings, even though they look lifelike to Sonichu, because Chris himself drew the sex scenes on Encyclopedia Dramatica, some of which he recycled in Sonichu issue 8, among other things. The spring break, featured in issue 8, features Blake getting fooled into having unprotected sex with a tranny, which most analysts agree is a reference to Chris's own experiences getting tricked by various trolls as would-be girlfriends, intentionally or not. Chris does a pretty good job projecting his own hormone-fueled foolishness into Blake. Also, Chris attempted to impress Encyclopedia Dramatica by creating the you-know-what I Hate Me Too gallery. Ironic. Maybe it's like the people who do stuff unintentionally are the ones that deserve the more praise, because it takes guts to do something like that, or sheer brilliance to just do things on the fly. Chris does not understand the concept of parody. Despite his adamant declarations that he fully understands parody, Chris has repeatedly proven himself incapable of recognizing it in the face of the genuine article. The Jimmy Hill arc was a perfect example of what a parody is, taking what he had made canon and turning it around as commentary. He makes the same error in the Adult Swim posts. He posts a rant admonishing Robot Chicken, a show centered around parody, that the canon Autobots wouldn't act the way that they were portrayed, which was exactly the point. He gives on to give them a suggestion for a skit using random access humor, which thankfully was ignored. Robot Chicken received a lot of such complaints, and...
James?
What? Robot Chicken actually received a lot of such complaints, and made another sketch about the GoBots acting out of character, with the addition of a whiny, bespectacled, overweight fanboy living with his parents, interjecting with complaints about inaccuracies. Coincidence? I think not. Or probably. It's less likely that they would reference Chris himself, as it is that Chris is such a perfect example of everything wrong with cartoon-obsessed adults. Yeah. No, can't argue with him that. To cement the fact that Chris really doesn't understand parody, one only needs to take a look at a comment he made on a certain Hot Digimon Demon video. This comment has him spewing venom at the author for having murderous intent, and denying that Sonic is dead. The video shows Sonic doing a comically long jump start and careening into the sun. It completely sailed over Chris's head that the video was done as a joke, instead making him take the video seriously and believing that Hard Digimon Demon actually wanted to murder Sonic the Hedgehog. Right. In another Sonic-related example of how Chris does not understand parody, he was enraged by a parodic fictional news story which Chris thought was real, about Sega dropping Sonic as their mascot. That must have been like an April Fool's Day prank or something. Hypocrisy. While Chris is quick to justify the existence of his abomination by claiming parody, he also uses the term as an attack on parodies of his own work, particularly Asperchew. He doesn't just use the term slanderous mockeries or troll works, he specifically describes them as parodies. using the term as though it were an insult and justification for his rage. When challenged on why the parodic nature of Sonichu is okay but that of Aspachu is not, he was unable to provide an appropriate response, because he doesn't have one. Humorously, this is the only thing he has ever accurately described as a parody, whereas his own comics are at best fanfiction or at worst left of intellectual property theft. And that is technically the end of Chris's article on parody. Now, just before we go, there's something else I kind of like wanted to dig out. Where's the oh, here it is. This is something that's, now I know that some of you guys may already know that I want to make it as like a screenwriter one of these days, you know, writing for movies, writing for television. And one of the things you should also get is one of these here. It's the Screenwriter's Bible, and as you can see, part of the text kind of like fades out. It's what they describe as the complete guide to writing, formatting, and selling a script. Now, what's quite interesting is, because this is the 3rd edition, is that, well, obviously more pages and whatnot, but also there is a specific section on here that's about copywriting. So let me see if I can just find it. How to protect your work. Part 1, page 199. This is going to be important, because if Chris ever wanted to pursue anything with writing to Sonichu, he probably should have heard of this. Congratulations, you, the next great screenwriter, have written a stunning script. Realize that you have reached a major milestone. You should definitely reward yourself with positive self-talk and a bowl of ice cream. In Hollywood, no script is sacred. No comic is sacred either. Don't worry. There are ways to protect you and your creative offspring. There are ways to protect your rights. On the grounds of parody, I'm not entirely sure if it covers the grounds of parody in this, but let's just say for the sake of argument, I had a piece of work that Chris stole and put into his comic. 1. Keep records. First, be organized. Life can be very complicated, so write things down. Keep a journal of meetings you have with people and record what was discussed. See pages 224 and 225. Keep a log of phone calls, queries, and script submissions. You'll need these for the lawsuit later. You'll also use these records to follow up on contacts and create future strategies for selling your work. If there's ever any question in your mind that you might find to be a legal problem, consult an entertainment attorney. You may even want an attorney to review any contracts you've offered, particularly if the offerer is not signatorily to the Writers Guild of America. Note, only attorneys can give legal advice, and I am therefore not qualified to do so. Okay, so there's that. Copyright. Keep in mind that there are certain things you cannot protect. Ideas, historical facts, plots, titles, phrases, and anything not written down. Here's what you can protect. Your original expression of an idea or plot. In other words, your original spec script is the only thing you can protect. That is true. So, I suppose, I don't technically know whether it would be the same for like multimedia sort of stuff, although I suspect it probably would. The thing I would encourage anyone to do, well, if my work was ever featured in Sonichu without my consent, is that I would go into steps to understanding that I can't, stop him from using my name, but my character's names, but if he started using their likeness and anything like that, then he could do what he likes with them, for the lack of a better term, because then again, when has Chris really come up with anything really original? But then again, what if he started going one step further and started stealing plots that I was writing about for my characters? That is probably when I would have to veer my head in that direction, because I do write stories for my characters like any screenwriter would. The thing I'm having a little bit of an issue trying to work out is if that ever does happen and my stuff gets featured in, it's probably unlikely that it would, but if it did, I would strongly suspect the thing to do is to contact Chris first, and if she doesn't play ball, get in touch with an attorney or somebody who I can be part of, like the Writers Guild. That's the first, and that's where it should begin and end, in my opinion. So, because I don't particularly think I would have been nearly as kind on Chris if he started. But then again, if he started, making any sort of money or merchandising off it and making it, publishing it, that is probably when I would have the issue. So, with all that being said and done, I hope that was a useful piece of consumer advice, and I will hope to see all of you guys again in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye for now. Can I, oh, you can actually see the bottom of the screen there. That's kind of funny.